millions of Americans
Go Trump.
rallying behind a candidate
Her values align with American values.
for who's going to shape the future of our country over the next 4 years.
Thrilled to be back in this incredible state with thousands of proud, hardworking American patriots. That's what you are.
As your president, I pledge to seek common ground and common sense solutions to the challenges you face.
Immigration, security, the economy, and democracy. The choice is yours, from president to North Carolina's governor. Now, a focus on our future, the significance, the persuasion, the polls. We are only days away from the 2024 election, and your vote will help shape the future of our community and country for years to come. Thank you for joining this special coverage, Spotlight on North Carolina. I'm Tyler Hardin. Our state plays a major role at the top of the ballot. It's one of 7 swing states presidential candidates have a close eye on. Both former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris, along with their running mates, are crisscrossing the U.S. to take these states on this map. 16 electors chosen by the popular vote in our state are up for grabs in the race for 270 electoral votes, all to win the White House. And so far, millions of people from Murphy to Manteo have cast their ballot. Early voting numbers have broken records even in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. State elections officials were only able to open 76 of the 80 planned early voting sites in disaster-affected areas. This year, there's a major focus on undecided first-time voters. Since the 1960s, North Carolina has leaned Republican, but with hundreds of thousands relocating to the Tar Heel state each year, it's now a toss-up. Political science professor Pamela Baker says candidates are using unique ways to reach young people 18 to 21.
We are seeing a tremendous amount of newness as to how people get their information. So social media and how young people are engaging the political process in a very different way.
Both Trump and Harris are using social media influencers, going on podcasts, and even making TikTok videos to capture young people and push them to the polls. The candidates aren't shying away from traditional methods to reach voters. Thousands of people showed up at their rallies happening in Greenville. Trump's running mate J.D. Vance even stopped by Sup Dogs and went to an ECU football game, while Harris's VP pick, Tim Walz, touched down and drummed up support outside Pitt County's Democratic headquarters. One of the easiest and most effective ways to connect with voters only takes 30 seconds. Campaigns and super PACs are sinking millions of dollars into political advertisements right here in our state. Political science professor Dr. Peter Francia shows us how these persuasive ads target some of the top concerns.
Kamala Harris is going to significantly raise taxes.
Taxes are going to have to go up?
Kamala's plan will raise families' taxes by nearly $2,600 a year. Under Kamala, prices have already soared. Now she'd make it worse with even higher taxes.
Taxes are going to have to go up?
President Trump will cut taxes again. No taxes on tips, overtime, or Social Security.
I'm Donald J. Trump, and I approve this message.
So what is your first reaction seeing that ad from the Trump campaign?
So the focus is on economic issues, of course, taxes in this case, and that's an issue that polls near the top of issue priorities for voters right now. If you look at inflation combined with the economy and related issues that are economic, those are polling near the very, very top. This is an ad definitely geared towards persuasion to try and help win over a lot of those swing voters where that is the top issue of concern. Now, there are other ads that are about mobilization and trying to get your partisans to the polls. This is certainly a traditional issue for Republicans, low taxes, so it certainly plays to the base. But the primary focus of that ad is to try and persuade those swing voters because this is an issue of top concern in just about every single poll.
Let's go ahead. We'll take a look at that next ad. This is from the Harris campaign. It is about Trump's advisors now endorsing the VP for president.
100 Republicans who worked in national security for Presidents Reagan, both Bushes, and for President Trump, now endorsing Harris for president.
She came up as a prosecutor, an attorney general, into the Senate. She has the kind of character that's going to be necessary in the presidency.
Vice President Harris is standing in the breach at a critical moment in our nation's history. We have a shared commitment as Americans to do what's right for this country. This year, I am proudly casting my vote for Vice President Kamala Harris.
Former generals, secretaries of defense, secretaries of the Army, Navy, and Air Force, CIA directors, and National Security Council leaders under Democratic and Republican presidents, Republican members of Congress, and even former Trump administration officials agree there's only one candidate fit to lead our nation, and that's Kamala Harris.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
Okay, so you're seeing Republicans come out now endorsing the Democratic nominee for president. What does that signal?
That was very deliberate to highlight Republicans. It's about demonstrating cross-party appeal. Harris is trying to show voters that she's not just a candidate for Democrats, but there are even these prominent Republicans that have endorsed her. So again, that's also about trying to win over some of those undecided voters, those swing voters who may be able to be persuaded by a message that shows that she is a candidate that has cross-party appeal.
I think it's confusing at best. I think at worst, it can cause division.
People casting their ballot know they'll have choices for office, but this year, North Carolina voters will also have a say to change the language in the state constitution. We're talking about the Citizens Only Amendment. Many of you have been curious about what it is. Let's break it down. It would delete a part that currently reads every person born in the United States and every person who has been naturalized and replace it with only a citizen of the United States. Republican lawmakers say the amendment is aimed at clarifying the law and helps establish confidence in the election. Political science professor Pamela Baker says the law is already clear, stating it's illegal for non-citizens to vote in state and federal elections. Baker says this even being on the ballot could lead to other outcomes.
It can cause more questions and maybe even lead to conspiracy theories when maybe a certain candidate might not win, or a group might think something has happened to cause a certain candidate not to win, and that's on either side.
The amendment needs a majority vote to be approved. A state audit from 2016 showed 41 non-citizens with legal status voted out of the nearly 4.8 million ballots cast in the general election. Other recent audits did not have specifics for non-citizens. And according to state law, a non-citizen attempting to vote would result in a felony charge. From Eastern Carolina to our nation's capital, those elected to the House of Representatives serve 2-year terms. Redrawn congressional districts in our area have come under the microscope. In District 3, there is no Democrat challenging the Republican incumbent, Dr. Greg Murphy. However, on the ballot is Libertarian George Kormos. But in District 1, retired Army Colonel and political newcomer, Republican Lori Buckout from Edenton, is taking on Democratic incumbent from Snow Hill, Don Davis. That's why this district from the border of Virginia to the north of Kinston is now considered a toss-up. And whoever wins this race will go on to represent nearly 750,000 constituents. But a lot of the ads we're seeing out of their campaigns relate to an issue happening more than 2,000 miles away.
Don Davis, Joe Biden, and Kamala Harris have failed us on the border. Woke Democrat policies have illegals and fentanyl pouring in, not to mention terrorists. I see the effects every day right here in North Carolina.
Don Davis can visit the border and take selfies all he wants, but their policies have dangerously failed. This Army Colonel can make us safe again. I'm Lori Buckout. I approve this message.
So you heard the tagline, "Make us safe again," kind of tying into what Trump has mentioned, "Make America great again."
This ad in particular is classic challenger playbook material, and what a challenger has to do for any office, but certainly for a U.S. House race, could be even U.S. Senate, could be even president. What the challenger needs to do is convince the voting public that change needs to happen. And one of the ways you do that is you highlight the record of the incumbent, you attack that record, and make the case for change. And that's exactly what we see in this ad.
And when we move on now to the Davis campaign, they're actually looking at his record and reflecting on the accomplishments that he made with the southern border. Let's take a look at that one.
It's one thing to talk a big game. It's another to act, to do something, to actually go to the border, not once or twice, but 3 times, to see for myself what's needed. Because securing the border is that important. That's why I'm working with both parties to hire 22,000 new Border Patrol agents and beef up fentanyl screening. I'm Don Davis, and I approve this message because protecting Eastern North Carolina families takes more than just talk.
It's almost as if this ad is in response to the one we just saw from the Buckout campaign.
Yeah, and that's classic incumbent playbook material where they're going to do 2 things. They're going to claim credit for their accomplishments to try and convince voters that they should, stay the course with this candidate because they're getting the job done. Another thing that incumbents do is they anticipate the criticism that's going to come from their challengers. And that's why we're talking about the border in this ad, because Don Davis knows that's something that Lori Buckout was going to attack him on. So it's a way to sort of preemptively get his message out on that attack that's going to come from the challenger.
One race voters are sharply divided on is one you may not expect. That is who will lead our state's public schools. The superintendent of public instruction guides more than 2,500 schools and oversees an $11 billion budget. This race has received national attention, not over policy differences, but because of Republican outsider Michelle Murrow's controversial comments and social media posts. Murrow says she supports vouchers for private and charter schools.
I think that school choice and having those options only makes everything better. I'm doing this because my children have been in public, they've been in private, and they've been in homeschool.
Her opponent disagrees. Democrat Mo Green says public schools need the investment. Green was superintendent of the 3rd largest district in our state, Guilford County Schools, for more than 7 years.
Where we certainly have to be advocating with our General Assembly for additional resources, really helping them to understand the policy decisions that they're making are impacting in the public schools pretty dramatically.
Both Green and Morrow are in favor of raising teacher salaries. They also say school safety would be a top priority if they are elected state superintendent. Another hot race in North Carolina making national headlines. Who's going to take the governor's mansion? Longtime Democratic politician and Attorney General Josh Stein is hoping to follow Governor Roy Cooper's footsteps. Meanwhile, Republican Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson locked in a historical nomination as the first black major party nominee for the highest office in the state. But his run has been plagued in controversy. A September CNN investigation claims Robinson made salacious comments on a pornography website from 2008 to 2012. Robinson denies the accusations and filed a lawsuit against the cable network. Now, some of Robinson's posts on social media have been used at the center of ads from the Stein campaign.
That abortion in this country is not about protecting the lives of mothers. It's about killing a child because you weren't responsible enough to keep your skirt down.
I could not have been happier to be pregnant. But during a routine ultrasound, I found out that my baby was not going to make it, and I was at risk. What Mark Robinson said is despicable.
We could pass a bill saying you can't have an abortion in North Carolina for any reason.
Mark Robinson's extreme abortion ban will absolutely put women at risk.
So in this ad, we don't hear from Josh Stein, but we see right there that it was from his campaign using his opponent's own words.
Yeah, when opponents say make controversial statements, you can count on a campaign using those words against an opponent. We see that in this ad. I would also add the ad is another example of agenda setting. Abortion polls well among Democrats, and it's an issue that Democrats across the board tend to poll better on than Republicans. So, Democrats would like this to be an election where the voters go into the polls and think about abortion rather than border security, whereas Republicans would rather it be about border security than abortion. So a lot of these ads, they're choosing these issues not just by happenstance. these ads are geared towards the issues that they know their party's candidates poll best on.
We'll move now to an ad from Friends of Mark Robinson, so not directly from the campaign, but this is in regards to Stein on crime.
A wide open border, nearly 500,000 illegals right here in North Carolina. Woke Josh Stein is to blame. Stein went to court over 15 times to block President Trump from securing our border. Stein ignored sanctuary cities, while over 500 illegals were released from jail. Sex offenders, kidnappers, murderers set free. Woke Josh Stein put his politics over your safety.
So here labeled, Josh Stein, woke Josh Stein, and looks like included a lot of different articles in there to try to back up what their claim was.
Yeah, it's an ad also about agenda setting. All of the issues that are mentioned are ones that poll well for Republicans. So one of the goals in any advertising campaign is the candidates want to speak and get people thinking about the issues that they tend to do best on. And the polls certainly indicate that on issues like border security, immigration, those are, and crime and safety, those are issues that traditionally poll well for Republicans. So no surprise that in an ad like this, there's an effort to sort of set the agenda in a way that's favorable for Republican candidates.
We are now closer to Election Day. There are a few reminders before you visit the polls. Early voting is happening now until Saturday, November 2nd at 3 in the afternoon. If you don't cast your ballot by then, you'll have Election Day, Tuesday, November 5th. Polls open at 6:30 in the morning and close at 7:30 at night. The busiest times tend to be early in the morning and just before the polls close. Don't forget to bring your photo ID. This could include a driver's license, state ID, U.S. passport, voter ID, or even a college university ID. You can find a recap of all the candidates you'll find on the ballot, plus a breakdown of the constitutional amendment on WCTI12.com. Just click on the Election tab.